What surprised you about your first sexual experience? We hope the following resources will bring all victims the support they need. RAIN, https://www.train.org/ has a multitude of tools for current and recovering sexual assault victims in the United States. Hot Peach Pages houses an international directory. http://www.hotpeachpages.net/a/countries.html in over 110 languages. 1 in 6. https://1in6.org/ offers a wide range of information and services to male sexual violence survivors. On Reddit, rape counseling is dedicated to providing emotional support to sexual violence victims. As well, Adult Survivors is a community for adults who experienced sexual abuse as children. Keep in mind, these communities are not led by professionals. What has happened to you is not right, nor it is your fault. It's okay to be scared and unsure. Please, seek help if you are struggling. You deserve to be happy. The AskReddit mods. If you have contributions or amendments, please notify the mods of our AskReddit. This is what I was coming here to say. Not all women bleed. And not all women find it super painful. My first time was pretty enjoyable, outside of the fact that the guy lasted for like 4 pumps and that's it. Though to his credit he was ready again a few minutes later. I had a partner who got me nice and wet first, and I had masturbated, been fingered, etc., so it wasn't the horror show that everyone tells us girls it will be. The guy and I only dated for that summer, but we were very close friends in the years before that, and are still best friends now, 17 years later. However, for being my best friend, he sure pisses me off whenever he gets around to asking, again, if I really was a virgin when we had sex that night. I've never given him a reason to think I was lying to him, but he keeps going back to the fact that I didn't bleed as some sort of gotcha. I'm envious. It was painful for me and hurt a lot. Granted, as I was older than average, it seems that people lose their virginity, as well as the fact that I never told him. I was embarrassed. For whatever reason, he probably would have been easier on me and it would have been different. I also found out he was on the bigger side. All in all, it wasn't the best experience, but I take comfort in that it seems most people's first times aren't anything to brag about. Definitely not anything like a lot of movies would lead you to believe it's like. This, I didn't bleed and my ex-boyfriend, first boyfriend, is surprised. He kept insisting afterwards that maybe I was harassed or raped whenever I was out drunk or blacked out at a party, which I know I never blacked out and I always know what happens when I'm drunk. I also actually cried my first time because I really don't want to have sex, but I was coerced into it by my ex because he told me that if I really love him we should do it. It ended up being a toxic relationship. He always gaslight me, and there are times where he would touch me when I sleep to check my kitty because he has trust issues that he really wasn't my first, and I just don't know what to do, thinking that maybe that's how it's just is. Like he can touch me because he's my BF, but I learned after we broke up that a lot of shit he did to me was wrong. We lasted 1 year and 6 months too, so imagine all the manipulation and gaslighting. Man, it brings some trauma. Glad that was over. Yup, exactly. Not every woman has a hymen. Some have hymens that shrivel up or stretch with age, and some women have them for life. And hymens don't block the vagina's opening like a banner to be torn through. They go around the opening like a donut, so there's always a hole in the middle. Otherwise menstrual blood wouldn't be able to leave the body. And hymens don't normally tear unless there's no lubrication, and there's a lot of friction, just like rubbing any part of your skin would cause tearing, burning, and bleeding. Imagine vigorously rubbing the little bit of webbing between our fingers. It would tear and hurt. The hymen normally just stretches to accommodate anything going in. This is definitely something that frustrates me, that women are taught their first time will involve pain and blood. In many ways that can be a self-fulfilling prophecy, since a person can be worried and tense about it, while there can be blood, and it's okay if that happens. It is very possible that with patience and intimacy in loving touches and preparation and foreplay that the first time won't involve pain or blood at all. While I'm not a gynecologist by any means, so take the following with a grain of salt, it's my understanding that most first times don't have to involve that kind of pain. On a side note, the concept of virginity is a bullshit patriarchal tool of slavery and judgment. Ask me for details. The hymen doesn't cover the vagina opening. It's not like a freshness seal, haha. It's just a ring of tissue around the edge, more or less. Obviously they're all different as the woman they're attached to. Some have a small hole, some have a large hole, some have a few holes or a string of tissue that goes across. If a hymen is totally covering the vaginal opening, it will prevent menstrual blood from exiting and can lead to a lot of negative health effects. It also needs to be surgically corrected. Hymens can be damaged by all kinds of activities, but absolutely do not have to break or bleed from sex. And honestly, there's no reason that sex the first time should damage a hymen, but no sex after that will. Like any time you have sex it could happen. The YouTuber Sexplanations has some great videos on all kinds of sexual anatomy, if you're curious. FYI, I'm not a doctor, just read a lot of articles about this stuff to learn about my own body. I'm not sure if you're being serious or not, but I'll answer seriously anyway. The hymen is a membrane that surrounds the entrance of the vagina. It can tear in some activities outside of sex, like riding a bike, doing the splits, or even just using a tampon. While it can tear during sex, it is not an indicator of virginity. The concept of virginity is a social construct and is in no way tied to our biology. Just like how every vagina is different, every hymen is different. Most of the time it covers the lower half of the vaginal opening in a half-moon shape, and allows enough room for menstrual blood to flow out. However, sometimes the hymen may be imperforated, there is no opening and covers the vagina completely. This causes complications with menstrual blood being unable to flow out. The blood will back up and cause symptoms like abdominal pain. This may need to be treated by a doctor. This can also be true for micro-imperforated hymens, where there is only a small opening. There can also be septated hymen, where part of the membrane covers the vagina but leaves two or more openings. It should be obvious that having sex for the first time with a hymen that covers a lot of the vaginal opening will be more painful and likely to bleed than a smaller hymen. Basically, hymens come in many shapes and sizes. It's really a roll of the genetic dice if you have one that will cause more or less complications in your life and during sex. They don't teach a lot of things in sex ed. I'm in the UK, born in 1990, and I didn't even have a sex ed class throughout school. I'm a big advocate for honest sexual education for all genders and sexualities, because it's important for men to know what goes on with women's bodies too, and for people who don't identify as straight are also educated on safe, consensual, and pleasurable sex. If you want to know more about the hymen, then give it a Google search. There'll be lots of information from various female-oriented magazines or health websites that'll help you. You're absolutely right, bad information is harmful, and I really wish the subject of sex, masturbation, and our reproductive parts wasn't taboo. At the moment my almost 4-year-old has realized his foreskin now retracts, and if he tugs hard enough his penis grows. He likes to come show me this, as uncomfortable as that is for me because of how we've all been taught to be shameful of our bodies. I'm trying hard to remind myself that he's exploring his body and learning how it works. I then reiterate to be gentle and go wash his hands. Girls discover themselves too at that age and begin playing with themselves, but it's never talked about among parenthood, probably because we believe we shouldn't talk about it. Women go through years or decades of unnecessary painful periods because we're taught that they're supposed to be painful and to just get on with it. Men often don't know women have 3 holes, not 2. And I've even known some women who don't know this. Sex ed is so important, not just for sexual intercourse but for our own development and health. /rant over now. I feel like it's surprising how much emphasis there is on bleeding the first time you have sex. I'm fairly sure that while it might not be bad if it does happen, it's not actually ideal to bleed. It can mean you rushed it and weren't prepared for it properly, etc. But I'm also not a medical expert. so I could be completely wrong. Edit, maybe not ideal. It seems that it can happen even if you do all the right stuff. Apparently I've just read too much and associate bleeding during sex with bad stuff. I have a friend who I don't really talk to that much because of COVID. A couple of years ago, he started dating his first girlfriend in college, and they had sex at one of our friends' houses. He's a very timid dude, sheltered by his parents, suffered from some significant anxiety, but he came out of that house later that day so full of sass. He became infamous for it. Because it happened again. We called it his post-nut sass. I swear to God it was like someone had put the mask on him. TBH, I miss that dude. This happened with the first guy I slept with, an ex-BF. The first like 5 times we tried, we just couldn't do it. I really wanted to, but there was no way it would fit. Just impossible. None of us understood what we did wrong. After a few weeks we finally managed to start having sex. But then it took weeks or even months of sex for him to orgasm. He would last for 45 plus minutes, up to an hour several times, and we only stopped when we got too exhausted or needed to do something else. I realized afterwards that him wanking it up to 4 times a day, and later in our relationship expecting sex 5 times a day was not normal, and might be thought of as a sex addiction. My wife grew up very religious and a virgin before we married, and she had a breakdown on our honeymoon. I asked if it was hurting or if something else was on her mind, and she said something along the lines of, "I enjoy it too much." A woman is supposed to be demure and submissive. I must be a pervert. We had a talk about it and she took a few days to fully accept that it was okay. Nowadays she is almost always the initiator and a proud owner of several vibrators. She also makes goodie bags for all her other friends who are virgins going into marriage. Lube, disinfecting sprays, condoms, how-to-sex books, etc., because she knows how confusing it can be when you have no idea what's going on but you go in with the wrong preconceptions. Edit, disinfecting spray is probably the wrong word. It's not like Clorox or something. It's some kind of medical soothing spray for the vaginal area with the mild numbing agent. Helps on the day after, or days after, if things got a bit raw down there, especially if you are a fresh virgin going straight to all day every day honeymoon mode. As someone who loves having their boobs grabbed, I'm going to step in and say, it's the best part of foreplay. It's by far the fastest way to get me excited. A surprise grab over clothing, a sneaky squeeze from behind, a full face motorboat, whatever. Before and during sex, I require full tit attention, be it either from hand or mouth. For lots of women, nipples are as sensitive, if not more than the clitoris. And for some ladies with clits that are too sensitive for prolonged action, nipples are a great substitute. PSA, the cup size, the letter, of a bra is relative. For each band size, the number, representing the circumference of the torso under the bust, the volume a given letter cup will be different. 30D, 32C, 34B, and 36 all have the same cup size, volume. These are called sister sizes, and often the same person can fit in 2 sister sizes if their measured size isn't commonly sold. I.T. Someone can wear both a C-cup bra and a B-cup bra and still fill the same volume with their boobs, just with a different band size. What this also means is a 36C, 38C, and 40C would all have significantly different cup volumes. So when someone says they like C-cups, it doesn't mean a whole lot, especially given sizes aren't exactly standard, and have changed over time. Sizes Z, F, G, etc. are way more common than you think, though harder to shop for, so lots of people just don't have the right bra size. This isn't directed at Op exactly, since I don't know him or his background, but I don't know anyone besides an experienced bra fitter who would be comfortable looking at someone's body and coming up with the size. See the chaos of shopping at Victoria's Secret, where it's often the undertrained staff's job to guess, and they usually guess wrong even when they measure. Edited for inclusivity. 33 meters. My first actually sexual experience wasn't penetration. I was maybe 6 or 7, no clue what sex actually was at that point. but I do remember my sister pulling down my pants to inspect/investigate my body. I'd curiosity, I guess. She pulled my shorts down. I remember clear as day. It was summer and early afternoon. My mother came into my room where my sister was touching me, half naked. My mother blamed me for the whole situation. My sister is 5 years older than, which means she was going through puberty. I'd maybe am being too sensitive about the whole thing. My mother put me facing toward our back door. The shades were closed. I was sitting down in a wooden chair, and my mother scolded me, yelled, and grounded me all at the same time and said she would tell my father if I did it again. I still think about it time to time. Maybe why I'm an addict, or suicidal, I really don't know. But shitty situation I'll never forget till the day I die. And now I think in that moment my mother really just blatantly chose her favorite kid. Totally. I've never been in that situation of trying to convince a girl. It was always mutual unspoken feelings, in my experience. 2 of my favorite experiences were with the same girl who couldn't get enough. I'll spare you most of the details because I get lost while typing about things I care about, and colorful when talking about sex. I deleted a lot, lol. But being woken up by the girl mounting on top of you only hours after having sex, and passionate missionary are awesome, and neither of these things work without a girl being actively engaged in the moment. Actually, passionate missionary between 2 people that care about each other is probably one of the single greatest things sex has to offer, bar none. It is a pinnacle of a league of its own. It depends a bit on what you mean by first sexual experience. Although we never fucked, I would consider mine the first time I was with a girl in my teens and we were touching each other intimately, and I slipped a finger inside of her. She was so wet, and then as I fiddled with her clit with my thumb as my finger was in her, she came and I felt her gripping my finger so hard as she shook. I had no real idea girls came so hard, and it set me off coming in her hands that were on my cock. If you mean the first time I fucked, it was rather less spectacular, but I do remember just how right it felt to feel myself inside her, and how much I hated the condom stopping me feeling her properly. Yeah, I was raised during the time when women were revolting against the idea of sex hurting and would instead say sex should never hurt and you're doing something wrong if it does. We did foreplay, used as much lube as humanly possible, went slow, tried to build up. It still hurt. I felt like I was a failure of a woman, lol. It made relaxing a lot worse during my first time. Turns out I probably just had a thicker hymen and a slight bleeding and discomfort was normal. Took 2 months of trying before my fiancé and I managed full penetration. The fact is that every woman is different and so are our hymens. While bleeding may not be normal for some, it's totally normal for others. People need to think harder before they talk, because making women feel like freaks because first-time sex hurt for them is not the way to go. Gay guy here. At the time, I wasn't totally sure I was gay. I had had a girlfriend before, who I had kissed, though not much more. The surprise was how much I wanted this dude who I met on my high school newspaper staff. I didn't know him well, but he asked me to hang out randomly once. We didn't plan to hook up at all. Maybe he was scheming. But I just went over to his place to talk, watch a movie, shoot the shit. We were just horsing around and stuff, and then I realized I was hard as a brick. Eventually, I suggested we play strip poker. He was hard too, as I discovered during the game, and I was basically leaking just seeing his boner in underwear. The actual sex stuff was really awkward, and we got interrupted, but after that day, no more questions about which gender I'm into. It was amazing. I lost my virginity at 26. A few months ago actually. I had already given a BJ one time prior when I was 25. I was surprisingly good at it. Probably because I watch amateur, homemade porn to masturbate, discovered I love to give. The guy's pleasure turns me on even more. Plus I had already explored my own body with fingers and toys even before the first BJ. I used vaginal dilators to get the pain out of the way and slowly get used to having something inside me. With the guy I lost my virginity to, we had a fun date at a casino. We had some drinks, played slots, and talked. Tequila makes me horny. I knew that already, so I had 3 shots of it. Casamigos to be specific. Haha. We got a room at the casino's hotel a few hours later. Proceeded to have the best sex for me to date. Found out I can easily orgasm vaginally. Got my pussy ate and ass ate for the first time. He didn't even care that I wasn't shaved. Which made it even hotter. We had sex twice that night and one more time in the morning before checking out. Honestly, lost track of how many times I came.